burger amazingness. Our delicious burgers are made with premium Angus beef, and you can pair it with one of our signature cocktails or a cold craft beer from our huge selection. Bad Daddy's Burger Bar on the Parkway in Huntsville and our new location at Cliff Farm, Highway 72 in Madison.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
Isn't the story of the prodigal son an amazing story? Basically, a rowdy boy who literally wished his father dead ran away and consumed his wealth with hard and fast living. Yet the father looked for his return every day, and when the boy got tired of eating pig slop, he decided to return. What did the father do? As soon as he saw that boy, he ran to him, threw his arms around him, and killed the fatted calf for a great celebration. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of the Cross Point Church. If you're looking for a church home, come see us, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison.
This hour is brought to you by Woody Anderson Ford, Alabama's F-150 Superstore. Welcome to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977.
That's how I roll. And I'm not going to drink and drive anymore.
That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Wes and Steve.
And a very pleasant, good Wednesday evening to you. Welcome into The Drive. I am live here inside the VBC on top of some ice here inside the VBC as they're not playing basketball on ice, by the way. Just to let you know, they did put a court, and there is buckets on either end, and we will have the hometown broadcast tonight, courtesy of North Alabama Mortgage as well as the Orthopedic Center, TOC, proud sponsors of our hometown broadcast here tonight, featuring the Tennessee Lady Vols and the Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee State University. I am here at the VBC, and Wes Neighbors is back in the studios of 97.7 ESPN The Zone. How are you, Wes?
Doing good, Steve. Good to be here. Hanging out at the studio.
You and Bill Bryan, or Brian Bill. But that is, I don't think I told you that. The big man, noon to 2, dubbed our esteemed producer's name as Bill and not Brian, so that's why I'm lovingly calling him Bill Bryan. But anyway.
And I am just proud to be here.
Well, there is plenty to get into. Actually, in hour number 2, we're going to re-rack a conversation Wes and I had yesterday with Coach Cutt, David Cutcliffe, and that is, walk you up to tip-off between Middle Tennessee State and the Tennessee Lady Vols that we'll have for you over our airwaves beginning at 6:30. But we will talk to Trevor Maddich coming up here in 10 minutes' time. Jalen Hurts, though, at least one of the odds-on favorites to win the NFL MVP, the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, was asked about the Crimson Tide and another Jalen, and Jalen Milroe. Here's what another Jalen had to say about the Bama quarterback. And these are both guys from the state of Texas, after all.
Yeah, he's had a great year. He's always been a very special player. He's a Texas kid, and he's just continued to grow and grow and grow. And it's been really, really nice to watch. So I've been supporting him and from a distance, and just happy to see him get in the Final Four, and happy to see him have an opportunity to lead his team and hopefully get a national title. So all my support goes to him.
That is a little bit of Jalen Hurts from earlier today. On those Texas kids stick together, Wes.
Well, yeah, those Bama kids do too. So,
well, he went Texas.
Yeah. Well, he's from Texas, from Katy, Texas. It was not far from where he's from Houston. So is Roberts is from Texas also, number 77. So there's always guys from Houston area in Tuscaloosa, almost in every class.
So the portal's only been open less than a week, and we're already at over 1,200 kids that have populated the portal. And
we know 60% of those guys will never play again.
How about that? I mean, it does make me wonder what kind of education that needs to happen for these kids. In other words, of what they're getting themselves into.
Well, the grass is always greener, Steve.
Isn't
it's
it?
just not just a matter if you're teenagers or a teenager where maybe a family member's trying to make you the breadwinner of the household, and so they're under a lot of pressure to do certain things, and but it works out for some people it doesn't, and sometimes it doesn't look like it's working out for you, and then all of a sudden the next year it is. I mean, look at Jermaine Burton. Everybody wonder why he left Georgia, why he and then last year, you're thinking, well, he should have stayed at Georgia. Why is he, didn't have a very good year. This year he played awesome. So,
yeah. And
now he's heading back to the CFP. So, you just never know how it's going to work out. You just do your best, and, you fight to get better every day. But to me, if I'm if I'm playing, I'm not leaving. I mean, why would you leave somewhere you're playing? That I'll never understand. Like, you look at these guys like Damian George went to Florida, not going to bowl game. The big kid that used to play was a starting left guard last year for Alabama, who went to Miami, not going to a bowl game. I don't think – is Miami going to a bowl game? I'm not sure.
I think they are.
But, they're obviously not in the CFP, and I just don't understand the only reason you leave in that case is because you think you can't play where you are. And I get that, because everybody's dream is to keep playing after college. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And so you can't – there's very little examples where somebody didn't play in college that ends up playing in the NFL. There are some, though. The quarterback from USC played a long time. That was the second behind Matt Leinart. I forget his name, but he even got drafted by the New England Patriots. Ended up playing a little bit and then went somewhere.
You talking about Booty?
I'm not sure who I'm talking about, but
John David Booty, or am I aging myself with that one?
I think it's a different one.
Okay. By the way, the Hurricanes are playing Rutgers in the Pinstripe Bowl. I know we're all waiting on pins and needles for that one.
Yeah, exactly. My point exactly.
Yeah. We do need to take an early timeout. Trevor Maddich is set to join us on the other side, get his thoughts on the Final Four as well as the ever-popular portal and what's going on there. So just getting things started. Let's go ahead and take our first time out. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
If you're the kind of value shopper who waits to the end of the year because you know that's when the deals are the best, it's here. And there's no first payment for 90 days. Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford's Make the Holiday Bright sales event. And we've got the best selection of new and certified pre-owned Fords we've had in years. Right now, get financing as low as 2.9% for up to 72 months on 23 F-150s. America's best-selling truck for 47 years. 2.9 on F-150. And Woody Anderson Ford has over 100 F-150s to choose from. Great finance rates and no first payment for 90 days on all new Fords. We have financing as low as 1.9% for up to 60 months on 23 Explorer, Escape, and Bronco Sport 2. It's our year-end sales event, the best time of the year to buy, plus no first payment for 90 days, your good credit through Ford Motor Credit. This offer ends December 30th. Come by and make your holidays bright at Woody Anderson Ford. We hope to see you soon.
What if I told you that Bigfoot is real and that he's making the best donuts you've ever had? Come see for yourself at Bigfoot's Little Donuts. Come in and order from over 50 flavors, all made hot and delicious. Ranked in the top 100 donut shops in the nation by Yelp. Bigfoot Little Donuts. Order in store or online at bigfootslittledonuts.com for pickup or delivery from Grub South or DoorDash. South Parkway, Huntsville, and County Line Road, Madison. Bigfoot's Little Donuts. Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
The End Zone Sports Bar has done it again. This time, they're bringing their jumbo wings, handcrafted burgers, Tex-Mex, and New York-style pizza to the Midtown District with their new location on McMurtry Drive Northwest opposite the Target Plaza. Tuesdays at the End Zone means half-price burgers, and Wednesday is $1 jumbo wings all day long. The End Zone also features Sunday ticket for all your NFL viewing. The newest End Zone Sports Bar in the Midtown District on McMurtry near the Target Plaza. Get in the End Zone.
Here's a list of what we have: the Crimson Tide Sports Network, the Atlanta Braves Radio Network, Madison Academy Football, UAH Basketball, the SEC Radio Network, the College Football National Championship Game, the SEC Football Championship Game, NBA Playoffs, MLB Playoffs, and that's just the starting lineup. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
That fact is important for you to know.
This segment of The Drive is brought to you by Woody Anderson Ford, located online at woodyAndersonFord.com with 2 locations, Hughes Road in Madison and Jordan Lane in Huntsville.
Back here on The Drive on a Wednesday afternoon, along with Wes Neighbor. Steve Moulton back here with you, and time to head out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Talk a little football, shall we? As we're actually walking you up to some college basketball that we'll have over our airwaves here tonight with Middle Tennessee State University taking on the Lady Vols of the University of Tennessee. But nonetheless, let's talk some football, shall we? As Trevor Matich from ESPN is kind enough to join us. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Steve. How are you doing?
Doing real well. And I guess the most obvious place to start is... what was that about? At least Central Time. That was about 11:22 Central Time when it said Alabama the 4 seed. What was your first reaction?
I thought that was right. I thought that was fair. Florida State fans are apoplectic and have a right to be. But I thought that Alabama was right at number 4. And in part because of that, Texas comes in as a package deal at number 3. But you know, Alabama, the one loss that they had was to the team that the committee ranked number 3 at the end of the season when all the data points were in. That's Texas. That was their only loss. Other than that, they were undefeated. And people say talk a lot about, the naysayers talk a lot about how they barely beat Auburn and struggle against USF and stuff like that. And all that is reasonable, but Alabama still is a one-loss SEC champ who just beat the Georgia team that the committee has ranked number 6 now, which is also low. And so that's a great win in their final data point, and their only loss is to number 3. And so I think it's fair. I think it's right. And I think the committee did the best job they could in an extraordinarily difficult year when there were 4 teams in with a great argument to be in the final 2 spots, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, and Georgia. It was a no-win situation for the committee, and I think they made the best decision they could have.
So were you surprised at all? I mean, I thought they made the right decision, but I didn't think they were going to make the right decision.
No, Wes, I thought, before the decision came out, I was on SportsCenter and they said, well, who do you think is going to be the top 4? And I said Washington at 1, then Michigan, and if you flip those, that's fine with me, and the committee did. Texas, Alabama, and so it didn't surprise me. I thought that would be right. You didn't think they would make the right decision, though, huh?
Well, I mean, so just maybe because of what ESPN said every week. I mean, strength of schedule is a big thing to me. As you know, it doesn't matter just beating these teams, it's who you play. And that's why I agree with you. Washington should be over Michigan because of Michigan's schedule and their schedule strength. But they hadn't talked about it. They came up with something, as we talked about last week, the SOR, the strength of record. And I've never heard of that. And I just thought they were making such a big deal about the strength of record that maybe they weren't going to ever look at strength of schedule. But when you looked at strength of schedule, according to ESPN, Alabama was 5th and Florida State was 55th. And that's a big difference number.
Yeah, that was one of the things I think they'd look at. It's not just who you lose to, or whether you lose it, it's who you beat and where you beat them. And Florida State tried to get a top 10 victory when they scheduled LSU, but LSU finished at 13th. They finished outside the top 10, and Alabama beat them as well. And so when you look at the best wins, Alabama's best wins are better than Florida State's best wins, right? But ultimately, the reason they made the decision based on what their spokesperson Boo Corrigan said, and based on just what they did, was because they are allowed in their written guidelines to consider key injuries. And when Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis was hurt against North Alabama with 2 games to go, the committee was able to look at Florida State's performance as a new team, essentially, in the last 2 games. The comp to that is 2014 Ohio State, and I'm sure you guys have talked about that, where J.T. Barrett got hurt for the Buckeyes in the last game of the regular season. The committee was very interested to see how the backup Cardale Jones would do in the only game they'd get to see the Buckeyes with him starting, which was the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. Well, Ohio State wins 59-0. So the committee's like, okay, doesn't look like there's much of a drop-off. They're still rolling. And so they considered Ohio State a top 4 team. Florida State, the first game that the committee had to evaluate the Seminoles as a team without their starting quarterback, was against Florida. Really tricky game, rivalry game on the road. Florida State won that game. But what the committee saw was a passing attack that didn't work. Tate Rodemaker, the backup, he had 134 yards passing, averaged 5.5 yards per attempt. Florida's pass defense was worst in the SEC in terms of passing yards allowed per attempt. They allow 8.5. Rodemaker could only get 5.5. And they won the game, but it was a completely different team. And then, of course, against Louisville in the ACC championship game, Rodemaker was out with a concussion, and the backup Brock Glenn, freshman third-string guy, couldn't play at all, and at least he's not ready to play at all. And they won the game on the strength of a couple of big runs from the Wildcat formation. But the committee looked at those 2 games, especially the Florida game, because Rodemaker would be back from concussion protocol, we assume, for the playoffs. And they saw that Florida State had now changed. They had now become Iowa. Elite defense, suspect offense that can't throw a forward pass. And people say that, with a month's worth of practice, Rodemaker would be better at it, but the committee doesn't project that. They say, what do we see? What they saw with Ohio State in 2014 was 59-0. Okay, we see that they're still rolling. What they saw against Florida State essentially was Iowa. And that's the biggest reason, in my opinion, that they put Florida State at number 5 and Alabama at number 4.
Let's dive into the matchups. Let's start with Washington and Texas. Size that one up for me, Trevor.
This is going to be fun. There might be a point or two scored here. The thing about Washington is when they're rolling, they're hard to stop because the running game is good enough. We saw that against Oregon. The passing game, of course, is elite when everything is rolling. And their defense is not the strength of the team, but they've showed they can play well in situations. And this is how they beat Oregon both times, actually. Washington, in the first win over Oregon, Oregon actually outgained them. But Oregon's offense had 3 plays that were 4th and 3 over the course of that game. Had they converted any of those, they probably would have won. But Washington's defense stopped them on all 3 of those. Situational football, Huskies win. In the Pac-12 championship game, the Huskies ran 78 offensive plays. Oregon only ran 54, 78 plays to 54, because Oregon was 3 of 10 on third downs. Washington was 5 of take it back. Oregon was 3 of 10 on third down. Washington was 10 of 15 on third down. So in the key situations, Oregon couldn't stay on the field, and they couldn't get Washington off the field. And even though they had such a differential in number of plays run, Washington still only won that game by 3 points. But they are excellent in situations. Texas can make them one-dimensional. Texas's run defense is one of the best in the country. And they'll be able to, I think, stop that run of Washington. Now, the one dimension of Washington is really good. It's that passing attack. But at the same time, Texas is the leading sacking team in the Big 12. So once they make you one-dimensional, they can get after the pocket and they can get after the quarterback. And so I think ultimately those are going to be the key factors in the game. I think Texas wins the game. I think they do it because they are stronger at the line of scrimmage. And I think in the playoffs, line of scrimmage has typically been the key differentiator.
Texas had the best offensive line and defensive line Alabama played this year.
Wow. See, Wes, that is saying, and I respect that tremendously coming from you.
They did. And they have to me, they had the best coach defensive line, and we know that because he was at Alabama for so long as a defensive coach, and he's the real deal. And his guys are going to fight to the last second.
Bo Davis,
unbelievable coach, and he's the one that threw the fit on the bus a couple years ago. You remember when the coach it was on the internet where he went crazy on them, because I guess they got beat by a team 2 years ago, and they were giggling on the bus after the game after they got beat, and he just totally went. And that's what they needed at Texas. They needed a attitude change,
Yeah.
And that's what they got, and you're seeing the difference. My hat's totally off to that. They had a quarterback injury, almost lost to Kansas State. I think it was Kansas State. Yeah, it was Kansas State where they went for it on 4th and 4 when they kick a field goal to tie from the 4th. I don't know about that call, but I like Texas too. I just think that I really think we're going to see a rematch. I'm really interested in what you think about Michigan and Alabama, though.
Yeah, I agree with the rematch. I think we will see it. I think everything Michigan does well, Alabama does well. And some things I think Alabama is going to do better. First of all, there's been a lot of talk, and I think this is really smart, that Michigan hasn't really faced a quarterback quite like Jalen Milroe, who's got the ability both to run and to connect the beat down the field. And so this is going to be kind of a new thing for them on defense, although Michigan's defense is the real deal. I worry about Michigan's offense because as much credit as they get in their running game this year, they finished 74th in yards per rushing attempt. They played some good defenses. I mean, Penn State, Ohio State, even Rutgers. These are Iowa. These are really good rushing defenses. But they also played UNLV, East Carolina, Bowling Green, Indiana, and folks like that. And so, the passing attack is good. It's quite good, but it's not elite. And when you saw the Iowa game, the Big Ten championship game, Michigan's offense only scored 2 touchdowns. One was a 5-yard drive when a punt return set them up at the 5. The other was a 6-yard drive because their defense got them a fumble at 6. Other than that, they kicked some field goals, a bunch of field goals, but they moved the ball a little bit and then they bogged down. Well, you got to ask yourself, do you really think that Alabama's or that Iowa's defense is that much better than Alabama's defense? And I think no, especially in the secondary. And so this is a situation where I don't know that Michigan's offense will be able to do enough against an elite defense with so many big guys who can run. I think a lot of their numbers happen because they are quite good, Michigan's offense, but when they can physically bully teams, they do. I just don't think trying to physically bully Alabama's defense is a recipe for success.
Well, the whole key to me when for Alabama is to get ahead in the game and force some people to throw the ball like they did Georgia. I will never understand Georgia's game plan offensively. I don't understand why they didn't run what Auburn ran, the counter tray. I don't think they ran it once. They tried a misdirection on the fumble that was kind of similar to a play Auburn ran. Of course, they fumbled it. Maybe that's what kept them from doing it anymore. But to me, if they can get ahead of Michigan by 2 scores and get them where they throw the ball a little bit, that's where they 3rd and 8 or better. Those 2 outside guys are just really hard to block. I mean, they're as good as Georgia's tackles were. They had trouble blocking them in the game, and I think that'll be the same thing against Michigan. It's just Alabama's pass rush. If they can get you there, they can get to that situation is really good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and so I think Michigan's going to run into a bit of a stone wall. The Texas Washington game, I think, is a little bit more of a not necessarily a toss-up, but I think Texas has the edge in that because of the line of scrimmage. And then what a matchup that would be. Former Alabama offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian facing Nick Saban, and if that's the final, that's going to be an amazing game.
You could sell it as the last 2 coaches of the Crimson Tide, as Sark was the fill-in when Nick was down with COVID that year in 2020.
Yeah, you actually can. And the thing is, I mean, when you handicap that game, I think if that's the matchup, Alabama has the better secondary. But I think overall, when you look at the potential, skill players, quarterback, receivers, tight end, running back, it's hard. It's hard. It's either even or you have to give the edge, I think, to Texas in some ways. And when you talk about play caller, you've got Steve Sarkisian, who showed how masterful he is as a play caller in the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma State. I mean, it was a clinic of just slicing up a defense against Tommy Rees, who I think is a good young offensive coordinator. But if you're putting those 2 against one another, you got to give the edge to Sark. And so that would be a very interesting thing. We have a lot of football left to be played before we get to that point. That's a hypothetical matchup, but think about Alabama. This is a great thing for me. I think this, in all the time I've watched Nick Saban coach, and you guys have watched him longer than I have, but in the time that I have, this is the best coaching job he's done.
No question.
When this team started, they lose to Texas. I expected them to go out and annihilate USF the next week in retaliation, essentially. And they almost lost that game. They struggled to beat USF. And what you saw was a different Nick Saban, at least publicly. You saw nurturing Nick instead of taskmaster Nick. Often in the past, when they had either had a sloppy win or a loss, he would come out and challenge everybody's manhood, right? Challenge them to get back to doing the things that need to be done in order to have success on Saturdays. But after the USF game, he was asked what went wrong, and he was very vague comparatively in describing, we made some mistakes and we know better at certain things, and here's some of the things. But then he went directly to what things he thought the team did well to pull out a close win on the road. And I'm thinking, close win on the road, it was USF. But he talked about the good things. And it seemed to me like he had a team that was very young in a lot of places, that could go either direction in terms of spinning off the rails emotionally. And instead of challenging their manhood as a team publicly early, he nurtured them. He built them up emotionally. He built them up as young men until they were ready for more of the taskmaster. And he took that team and turned them into a one-loss SEC champ and a playoff team. And that, to me, in the way that he seemed to do it, adding that, I'm not saying he's not nurturing ever. Of course he is, right? But just the public demeanor that he had was so different from what it's been in many years past. And I thought it was just remarkable the way Nick Saban matched the needs of his team to get them to this point.
Well, and my listeners and Steve's heard this, and I said it the day after the game. I think Coach Saban in that game didn't play Jalen Milroe on purpose the whole game, because after that game, he immediately said he's the starter, and there wasn't one person on this earth could disagree with him, and it brought the whole team and put it behind one guy. Because I think the team was kind of split on who should be the quarterback in the locker room and in the public. But there's no split anymore. There hasn't been since that game. And I always say that Coach Saban's playing chess while everybody's playing checkers. And he's a master, like you said, of putting this. I remember when Alabama beat Arkansas by 1 point in one of the championship games, and he was the same way. Everybody was acting like we lost the game. And he went ballistic on the press, defending his team. He seems to be given whatever food they need, though. He has that sense about him that is incredible. And
Wes, that's an amazing theory that maybe he sat down Jalen Milroe in the USF game because he knew that the team would want him back and they'd coalesce around him. All you need now is a grassy knoll. And you got a story.
Well, I said it right after the game. It just the way he immediately after the. I mean, you would think he'd have put him in the game at some time. I mean, Tyler Buckner looked like he was playing lacrosse. It all makes sense now. And then the second string quarterback, he struggled a little bit, but he played pretty good. He's going to be a good player. He's just immature. He showed that when he threw the ball down before he scored against Chattanooga, before he ran into the end zone. But everybody on the team, every coach, every fan, all were behind Milroe. There was no question. That's the guy we had to was going to lead our team. I don't think anybody dreamed that we would get to where. I think people started believing after the LSU game that Milroe has something to him. And then the Tennessee game, the second half, and all that together, and seeing him I've never seen a player grow more in 1 year than Jalen Milroe.
Yeah,
Ever.
I agree, Wes. Yeah, and you can see it as you watch him over the course of the season. I mean, he'll stand in the pocket, and instead of being skittish as the season wore on, because he was skittish early, and looking at the pass rush and solving the problem with his legs, he'll stay in there with the pressure flying around him, or he'll move in the pocket, he'll climb in the pocket, he'll do things that experienced quarterbacks do to create a little bit of space for himself while still looking for ways to solve the problem with his arm, while still problem solving instead of bugging out. And you saw that confidence grow. And it's interesting, before the 31, what was it, 4th and goal at the 31 against Auburn, before that play, he was quoted as saying in the media, he said, let's go make a play. And I'm thinking, at that point, his team would have seen his growth and seen his confidence and had confidence that, yeah, we can go make a play here. And I think that line, if he said it, should go down in Iron Bowl lore and Alabama lore. I think it's an amazing line at the time that he said it, because of the time that he said it. And I think the second greatest line from after that game, Miss Terry was quoted as saying, "Yay." And I thought that was a pretty good quote as well.
Well, just to let you know, Trevor, I happened to go to the SEC championship game and ran into Miss Terry in the press conference room and asked her how she was doing. She grabbed my shoe that was up over my right knee and said, "I want to dance."
Did you dance with Miss Terry? Steve, I hadn't heard this.
No, I did not dance with Miss Terry. No, I did not. But I did find out.
So you turned Miss Terry down. Is that what you're saying?
No, we all found out that Nick Saban is a bad dancer. We all found this out.
But Sugar Steve can dance, I bet.
Oh.
Yeah. You know what the definition of a good dancer is?
What's that?
A guy with a whole case full of national championships.
That's it.
When you got more national championship rings than you got fingers on one hand, you're a great dancer no matter what.
Yeah, that's the damn truth.
Isn't it?
Oh, man.
I did want to go to the portal with you, not literally, but just how populated the portal has just gotten over the last, it's not even been a week, Trevor, and we're over 1,200 players in the portal. What can be done about it?
Nothing. I mean, nothing. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, because you'll have lawsuits like crazy if you start to say, yeah, well, you can no longer transfer the first time without having to sit out a year. We gave that to you, now we're taking it away. That's going to be a lawyer issue. And unless you have literally collective bargaining where somehow there's representation for the players and they bargain that away, then, that nothing's going to happen. It makes life miserable on coaches, but at the same time, I always default to what's better for the players. And, if you've got a skill in the entertainment industry, if you're in a boy band, and you decide you want to go to the other boy band, for whatever reason, you can go. You can do that. But if you throw a football, you can't. And now you got NIL, which is brought into it, which makes it free agency. Same thing. Who am I to tell an 18 or 19-year-old kid with a skill in the entertainment industry that they are not allowed to maximize that skill if they throw a football, but they can if they can sing or act? That's just it's not right. And so I always default to that, and that's the high bar that needs to be overcome. I did hear ESPN reporter Tom Van Haren say something very interesting. He said, some of the people that he talks to, he's kind of got this idea that maybe the solution to this would be, and this, I guess, would have to be collectively bargained, but if players, or maybe not, if players were to sign actual contracts, because the grant and aid scholarships are year to year, essentially. And if the players were to say, okay, I'm going to, 1-year contract, a 2-year, a 3-year, a 4-year, let's say it's a 3-year contract. I'm going to sign a 3-year contract to play for you, Alabama, and I commit to not transfer during those 3 years, right? Then Alabama knows they can put time and resources into that guy. If somebody comes in and signs a 1-year deal and they hope to re-up it, okay, but we're going to get some other people ready, and we're going to be ready to replace you in the portal, right? And so that might end up helping teams manage the roster churn a little bit if they can get that kind of a commitment. But
that's a great idea.
You've got to give up something of value.
Right, but that's a great idea, because what your example, if you're a singer, you're going to have a contract that you got to stay to till that contract's over.
Right. And so it's and what happens now? I mean, I don't know. I think players are loving all this opportunity, all this freedom, all this leverage, all this NIL money. I mean, unless you're a first or second round draft choice, a lot of players would end up making more money. Not all of them, but some of them would make more money staying an extra year in college and getting NIL money than they would make if they were drafted in the mid to late rounds. And so that's interesting. That's a double bonus for those players, because now they get to stay and develop and become a higher draft choice, and they make more money than they would have made, right? So, all these things for the players have the option for being good. For the coaches, it's terrible. But I want to point out 2 things about the transfer portal real fast. One is that when it works spectacularly. The 4 Heisman finalists include 3 quarterbacks that all were transfers. Would Michael Penix Jr. of Washington, or Bo Nix of Oregon, or Jaden Daniels at LSU, would they have had the kind of offensive lines and receivers and skilled players around them that they would have had in their former schools of Indiana, Auburn, and Arizona State? And the answer is not even close. And so those guys had their capabilities and potential unlocked because of the transfer portal. But the other thing is there are a whole lot of guys that don't end up finding a home. And they have a scholarship, they go into the portal, and nobody's willing to give them a scholarship.
60% of the people that enter the portal end up with no team to go to.
And those guys aren't in the news. The guys that are Heisman finalists are in the news. So this is where buyer beware. I like the freedom. I don't believe we should legislate to protect adults from themselves in a case like this. But I think it's important for players to get good advice, and there already are a whole lot of cautionary tales for current players to look at, where either former players or players who transferred out and don't have a home, would be able to tell them, hey, this is what I wish I knew before I made that decision.
You know what I've noticed, Trevor, too, though, is these quarterbacks that you mentioned, and you're absolutely right, they will not be where they were if they hadn't transferred. But they each of them struggled at times the first year. I mean, Jaden Daniels really came out against Alabama last year. I mean, he played awful against Tennessee last year. They got smoked at home. But you saw Bo Nix, his first game against Georgia, struggled mightily in that game. So it seems like to me that if I'm going after a quarterback, I'm going after one with multiple years of experience of eligibility left, not just 1 year, because to me it's hard to get ready in 1 year and change systems and do that over the spring. And it's like almost you're starting somebody with a little experience, but in a new offensive scheme. They're starting with one arm behind their back when they first get there.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that's part of the downside. Chemistry is so important on a football team, and if you don't have chemistry, you don't have time to build the chemistry because you're a one and done kind of guy, because you only got 1 year of eligibility left, or you decide to transfer out of it the second time because you graduated. Then that's a real problem. And another real problem for coaches is imagine if you're a smaller school, you're a group of 5 school, or you're a, just call it that. You're a group of 5 school, and you beat the recruiting trails, and you find a quarterback that nobody else is really paying attention to, but you think he's got a lot of potential. And so you bring him in, you give him a scholarship, you work with him for 2 years. He becomes a really, really good quarterback. And then he goes ahead and transfers out to a bigger school, right? Then, okay, now what do you do? So if you're that level of team, would you rather have a bigger school get a quarterback that's higher rated coming out of high school, develop him for a couple of years, he decides he can't play there because of the competition, and then have him transfer to you, rather than you take your resources and have them leave for some other school? And that's just the quarterback. So how do you manage all of that? So things are really kind of getting nuts. And absent a contract of a definitive length, the teams that are going to be successful over the next couple of years are going to be the ones who learn how to manage this the best.
We had Dan Murphy on yesterday about this new proposal from Charlie Baker, and reading about it further on ESPN.com, Charlie Baker laid out an aggressive and potentially groundbreaking vision. This is from the story. A new NCAA subdivision at the very top of college sports was sent in a letter to 350 Division I schools this week. Have you seen this story yet, Trevor?
Yes. Yeah. They're talking about having the highest tier teams in terms of money and the rest of it be able to determine their own kind of rules when it comes to roster size and how many recruits they can have, and what's the transfer portal rules and how the players will get compensated. Let them do it themselves. Right now, there were proposals. It's only a proposal. It's just all a big cloud floating around right now. But let me tell you why I like it. I thought when USC and UCLA announced they were going to the Big Ten, and then you had Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, and then Washington and Oregon going to the Big Ten, I immediately thought that this will lead to two power conferences that will be treated like the NFL. And the money will get so big, and eventually the courts will allow them to pay players directly, not just NIL. And there'll be so much money coming in that they will get all the best players. And you can have a 12-team playoff, but that 12-team playoff will be filled mostly with teams from the Big Ten and the SEC, because they will have most of the best players, because they can pay the best players the most. And so you'll have a group of 5 representative there. You might have somebody else as a representative. But if you have the highest ranked, call it the 5 highest ranked, however they would do it. The point is that you would end up having a mostly Big Ten against SEC playoff, certainly with advantages on the field, without having to worry about lawsuits, because everybody has access to it if they're good enough to get there. And this would be an interesting thing. It would create a power two, much like the NFL. You'd have the AFC and the NFC. You'd have a multiple round playoff, which could fold into this 12-team playoff, which you could tweak in different ways, and that would absolutely happen. And I think we're kind of heading there now. This proposal might get us there without court action. But let me tell you why I like the proposal, regardless of what the details are. It is because at least this is people with a vested interest in college football having a proactive role in determining the future of college football. NIL was determined by the courts. Now, I think it's turned out okay, but it was determined by the courts. There are state legislatures all over the country that have been passing laws relative to governing college football in their state. And they're trying to get an advantage, right? And so there's NIL, and there's all kinds of different things that they're doing in their states. Well, here's the thing. If the college football people, meaning the presidents essentially of the universities, if they don't take a proactive role in determining what's going to be best for college football, then that role will be filled by the courts and by legislators. Courts' interest is not the health of college football, it's complying with law. Legislatures have their own interests, which include elections, right? And also law and what's best for their state. It's the college football people that need to determine the future of all this, and the future is way up in the air right now. And at least I'm happy that there's been an idea floated that would get the vested interests of the game involved in a conversation of the future of the game, rather than sitting on the sidelines like they've been doing, waiting for courts and legislatures to tell them what their sport's going to be like.
Yep. So when you look at, to me, you look.
Wait,
at
we gave him a lot. You gave him a lot to chew on.
Yeah,
right
I know.
there,
There's a lot.
Yeah,
There's a
no,
lot to chew.
I apologize for that. I should have just put one thing instead of 3.
That's good.
On my part.
Yeah,
no. It was good information.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm glad that they're trying to move in some direction. But to me, what's happened is it's helped some of these other schools, the NIL and the players being able to move. Look what it's done already for the Pac-12 that's no longer the Pac-12. But to me, it's gonna spread the wealth a little bit more, because what's happening in some of these schools is, like it's happening in Florida right now, is they never give these guys long enough. They have 3 years, right? And if they're not back up to the top in 3 years, they get rid of them now. And that is a model that will never work. But by being able to go and get people to transfer, like with the supposedly NIL, which I like the true NIL. I don't like what they're trying to do, but but it gives them opportunity to build these teams faster, because these guys that are going now with the old rules wouldn't have a prayer to get something done in 3 years. And I don't think
Ole Miss, for example,
right? And I don't think Billy Napier will make it at Florida. If you look at his schedule next year, it's a rough deal. But I think if they give Billy Napier time, he will make it. If they give him the 4 or 5 years like you should, then I think he will make it. But I don't know what you feel about that. But to me, I see a little bit more parity coming, not as much. But look how many football teams we have now. I mean, what are there, 260 now?
There's a few, and there's a reason for it, right?
It's the money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But see, here's what I kind of look at. I think parity within the Power Two, the Big Ten and the SEC, essentially. I think you'll have pretty good parity, certainly in the top half of both of those conferences. But below that, it's like what was the Big Ten? What they were getting? What, $70 million per year per school, something like that?
Yeah, well, that was that neighborhood. Yeah.
You know what the SEC is?
Well, it's about to be the new contract. I think will be over $100 million a team.
Okay, well, gee golly. Okay, so let's call it $100 million a team, right? ACC, I think, is around $30 million. So that's $70 million a year more that the SEC teams will be getting than the ACC teams will get. That's $70 million a year. The ACC's contract goes through 2036. Is that what it is? So just to make it
that's
easier
right.
on that.
That's right.
Let's call that 10 years. It's more than that. But 10 years at $70 million a year, it's $700 million more over the next decade that SEC schools will have than ACC schools will have. So we're not just talking about facilities. You can only have so many waterfalls in your locker room. We're talking about healthcare for players after football. We're talking about recruiting offices and scouting offices that are NFL style. So now you're spending a fortune, much like teams like Alabama do now, but it'll be even more, where recruits don't even come to the coach's attention until they've been thoroughly vetted based on the coach's criteria by other people whose specialty is to recruit, right? And so they're really highly sophisticated but very expensive recruiting operations, plus money that's available to pay players, right? And this is where I think the parity between the top two conferences and the rest of them is going to disappear a little bit if things happen the way I kind of expect them to happen. Now, it may not end up being that way. There's a lot of things that we don't know. One of those things is we don't know the full impact of streaming and tech companies. Because if Apple and Amazon's doing well with the NFL, I guess now on Thursdays. If they decide they want to get into college football, Apple's already dabbling in that. If X decides they want to get involved with that, and all of a sudden they start to build up a portfolio so they can get some runway. Well, they got to build up the portfolio with teams and conferences that are available to them. And Big Ten, SEC are going to be locked up. ACC is locked up for a while. So what do? You go to the smaller ones. You go to ones that have shorter contracts. And now they're competing with each other to kind of be the streaming player on the block so they can then make big plays for SEC and Big Ten years down the road when they become available again. We don't know what's going to happen with companies like that. And that may inflate the dollars per team for ACC teams, Big 12 teams, Group of 5 teams, in ways that we can't even fathom right now. So a lot of things that we don't know.
Trevor, we are just flat out of time, but we thank you so much for the knowledge and the insight. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you and your family, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Wes. Merry Christmas to you guys as well.
Thanks, Trevor.
That is Trevor Mattich. Always enjoy our conversations with Trevor Mattich. Let's take our final time out here in this first hour of the drive. We'll be right back. Maybe a few minutes to take your calls on the other side.
You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Watch the Alabama High School Super 7 Football Championship presented by Alabama Community College System December 6th through the 8th on Alabama Public Television. It's all the gut-wrenching, hard-hitting, high-flying action you've come to expect from... Wait, Alabama Public Television. Okay. Watch every game live December 6th through the 8th, only on your new home for high school sports, APT.
This is Wes Neighbors sitting here with Philip Love of not only Eagle Insulation, now he represents Eagle Companies. Eagle through the years have added several companies to help individuals or builders through their construction renovation process. Eagle is known to represent quality, efficiency, and professionalism. Philip, I know you do insulation, but do you do masonry?
We do.
Do you do grading, erosion control, and dirt hauled off?
We do.
Do you do after paint, which includes shower doors, mirrors, shelving blinds, and bath hardware?
Yes, we do, Wes.
Do you do landscaping and irrigation?
Yes, we do.
So basically, Eagle can help you all along your process of building your house or doing renovations. So do you do plumbing?
We do not, Wes, but we can find somebody to do it.
Just give them time. They'll be there. Anyway, call Eagle Insulation at
256-755-1556.
Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money. Call Eagle today.
Thanks, Wes.
From heirloom diamonds to contemporary jewels, Loring & Company is the place to find something truly special. Whether shopping for a diamond ring for that once-in-a-lifetime occasion or marking a milestone birthday or personal achievement with a Rolex watch, you'll find just the thing in our edit of the world's most sought-after brands, including David Yurman, Roberto Coin, Marco Bicego, and Fopé. Expect a treasure trove of the world's most unique, even breathtaking earrings, rings, necklaces, and bracelets, making choosing just one piece a challenge in itself. Loring & Company Jewelers on Airport Road.
The kitchen is the heart of any home. It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started on the dream kitchen you've always wanted?
I'm Chris Haygood, and from all of us here at Bob Wallace Appliance to the home builders and the homeowners of the Huntsville area, a heartfelt thank you for buying local. We're in Huntsville, Florence, and Coleman, and online at bobwallaceappliance.com.
Tom Abraham here for my friends at North Alabama Mortgage. Did you know that average home equity is at an all-time high, but so is average consumer debt? Even though rates are higher now, you can use your equity to pay off your high consumer debt, student loans, etc., then refi when the rates drop. Don't put off that new home purchase. When rates drop, prices will go up. Buy now and get the best price and then refi when the rates drop. This is the time to talk to the experts at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com for more information.
Hello, listeners. My name is Jonathan Dunwoody, and I own Minuteman Press. We are a full-service print shop that is locally owned and operated. I have personally been handling direct mail for over 17 years and have a great relationship with the USPS. We are the only print shop in the area that is listed as a print provider on their website and the only printing franchise that can use their logo as our partner on marketing materials. We can help from conception to design, print, and delivery to the post office. And with our easy, secure online payment option, you don't even need to leave your office. Minuteman Press, we're not just putting ink on paper, we're building relationships.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. A mostly sunny sky this afternoon. Temperatures, though, going to be on the cooler end of the spectrum. Highs only climbing into the upper 40s and lower 50s. We're dropping into the low and mid 30s as we head into the overnight. Overall, a fantastic Thursday across the area. Mostly sunny sky. Temperatures climbing into the mid and upper 50s. We're dropping into the lower 40s through the overnight early Friday morning. More cloud cover on Friday afternoon. Does look like we are going to stay dry. Meteorologist Jordan Dressman on your home for ESPN Radio, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Each week, check out our latest Zone deal online at 977ESPN.com.
I'm eating good food.
We are 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Okay, all right. Is this in your wheelhouse, Wes?
Yeah, of course. FM.
I like it.
That's from my old days of spinning stacks of wax with all the right tracks.
There you go.
Let's put some glide in your stride and some pep in your step.
Yeah, there you go.
Always appreciate Trevor Maddich and great insight, be it on the Final Four or this new proposal. That is a proposal by the NCAA new president in Charlie Baker. We'll see how that turns out in a new subdivision where everybody's playing by their same rules, at least on whatever that new subdivision is, if it even gets approved. We don't even know that. But nonetheless, good stuff from Trevor Maddich. We are going to re-rack an interview that we did with David Cutcliffe right after the top of the hour break. And then our hometown broadcast featuring the Lady Raiders of Middle Tennessee State University taking on the Lady Vols from the University of Tennessee. Myself and Scott Tyson will have that coverage for you right here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. And we'll have all of that coming up here later on tonight on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Be sure and download our app. Just search 977 ESPN in your Google Marketplace or your Apple Store. But first things first, Sports Center comes up after this 1 minute timeout.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is SportsCenter. I'm Nick DeLuca. The QB carousel continues with the Jets. Zach Wilson set to start against the Texans on Sunday. Head coach Robert Saleh said the plan is for the former number 2 overall pick to start for the rest of the season. Wilson was benched in favor of now waived Tim Boyle. Trevor Siemian will serve as the team's backup. Saleh says he's excited to see Wilson with a let-it-rip mentality.
The biggest thing for Zach, just let the thing rip. Trust in your ability, trust in your teammates, trust in your arm talent, and trust what you see and just let it fly. He's got undeniable talent, arm talent, undeniable athleticism, and when he plays with that effort mentality, if you will, he's pretty good.
Wilson back into the starting lineup. Jets have not started 4 different QBs in a season since 1989. Elsewhere, the Vikings are sticking with Josh Dobbs as their starter for Sunday's game against the Raiders. According to coach Kevin O'Connell, Dobbs has committed 6 turnovers in the past 2 games, both losses. O'Connell spent the bye week reviewing the quarterback room. In baseball, right-handed reliever Adam Simber and the LA Angels are in agreement on a 1-year, $1.65 million contract, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan. Simber was non-tendered by the Blue Jays earlier this offseason. And college hoops, Dylan Harper, the number 2 prospect in the 2024 class and the top uncommitted senior in the country, announced his commitment to Rutgers today.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman, and coming up Thursday, Micah Parsons said he could be Tyreek Hill's quarterback. I'll tell you why he's completely disrespecting Tua. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
97.7 ESPN The Zone. Welcome to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977.
That's how I roll. And I'm not going to drink and drive anymore.
That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Wes and Steve.
Don't forget, tomorrow morning, our coverage of Madison Academy football will begin in the neighborhood of 10:30, walking you up to the 3A championship game down in Tuscaloosa as Madison Academy taking on Mobile Christian. Myself, as well as Glenn Laird and Scott Tyson, third member of our crew down in T-Town again for the 3A championship game. We've got hardwood coming up here later on tonight as women's college basketball featuring the Lady Raiders of Middle Tennessee State University taking on the Lady Vols of the University of Tennessee, and it's right here at the VBC, and the atmosphere is starting to gear up here inside the VBC, so come on by. Wes and I had an opportunity to talk to Coach David Cutcliffe yesterday. Here is that conversation. David Cutcliffe. Coach Cut is kind enough to join us. How are you, Coach?
Well, I am good. Vegas is an interesting place, is how I'm going to term it. I've asked my wife and I, she's on the trip, but done a lot of walking, but a lot of handshaking, a lot of events. We had a great SEC reception for our people or men that are headed into the College Football Hall of Fame. So that was a lot of fun last night. And then tonight is the big induction.
Wow. Coach, I've never been in that room. What is that room like to be a part of?
Well, it can be intimidating when you're in that sports world. It's inspiring. I've been fortunate to know a lot of guys that have reached that status as players and coaches, and you are very proud of them and happy for them and their families. Last night, of course, one that I have a personal relationship with is Eric Berry, who played at Tennessee when I was there, and know his dad and mom, and were able to be with them. But Eric is a Hall of Famer. And then Al Wilson, who is another Hall of Famer, came all the way out here to Vegas to celebrate Eric on this trip. So I had some good time with those folks last night. And then maybe the most exciting thing right now in this event is Commissioner, or as I call him, Coach Kramer, Roy Kramer, is going in as a football coach from Central Michigan, and seeing the commissioner, former commissioner, seeing his family was absolutely amazing. Commissioner is 94, I believe, maybe 95.
Wow.
Sharp as a tack. And what's interesting when you talk to people like Roy Kramer, he knows things that other people have no chance of knowing. Been a part of college athletics for a long, long time. And I try to talk to him and get as many stories out of him every chance I get to see him. So just a huge celebration. And Tim Tebow, who a lot of people know well, is in this class, and I got a chance to visit with he and his parents are so proud. And, he's a guy that actually changed quarterbacking in many, many ways, not only in the Southeastern Conference, but collegiately, just the approach they used when they played with Tim Tebow. So great night last night and a bigger night tonight.
Coach, how long has this been in Las Vegas? They used to have it at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, right?
And I wish it still was, personally, but we got moved from the Waldorf due to a massive renovation there. And this is actually the first time I have attended in Vegas. I think this is the third year, maybe. Could be the fourth, I'm not sure. How long they had to sign the contract to stay here, I'm not sure. So whether it returns to New York, which I loved going to New York. It was just magic with this event. And so it is really different. And I'm not a gambler or a partier, so Vegas is a little different for me. That's why I went for a 2-hour walk today. Love to see it, but as long as I'm keeping moving by it, I'm all good.
So Coach, I got a story you'll enjoy, I believe. So, my father was put in the Hall of Fame. It's been a long time now. I can't remember the year. But we go up, and the university, the first or second night, had a party for my dad, and we went early. And I get there, and my dad's two sisters were sitting there just all over Johnny Majors. And I was sitting there, well, why in the world? How do y'all know Johnny Majors? Because it was obvious when I walked up, they knew him. Said he used to come to our house all the time. His brother played at Alabama. And, of course, they were in Tuscaloosa, and they used to come to their house all the time. And I didn't even know that.
Well, I went with Coach Majors up there multiple times while I was working with him, and we had great trips. He loved New York, deeply loved New York, and I'm not sure what year he went in as a player, but, obviously was always going to make it. And it was a true black tie affair then. I mean, and it kind of is now, but, things have changed. But, this was pure tuxedos. And partially for a while, I think maybe it had been men only to the induction, and that changed. And then one of the other things that we do is we celebrate the Campbell Award, which is the top. It's called the Academic Heisman. You got to be a quality player and a great student, which Peyton Manning won while I was coaching him. And there'll be great student athletes there tonight, and that's another reason that John Majors and Coach Bryant, and it's a chance to celebrate student athletes as well for all the right reasons, if that makes sense.
Talking to Coach David Cutcliffe right now on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. By the way, your dad's class was class of 2003, so it's been 20 years.
Unbelievable. But Eli won it, that award. I believe he won some. Yeah. He won the award also, didn't he?
My brain power. Well,
Eli and the quarterback from Ohio State, and then the linebacker who ended up at the Jets from Miami. I can't call his name right now, but God, he was good.
You're getting me too, because I can see him and I can't pull his name out.
They were incredible. All of them gave. The guy from Ohio State was a molecular biologist degree.
Really?
Yeah, I can't even spell that. I don't know. That was.
I can't even say that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty awe-inspiring. I actually have a young man here, Dwayne Carter, that we recruited, and he played for us at Duke, and he is one of the finalists. I don't know who's going to win it, but he will be here tonight. I look forward to seeing his mom and dad, hugging their neck, and seeing Dwayne.
Coach, I did want to ask about future schedules, and I know you've, at least from past conversations, that you've been a proponent of sticking with 8 conference games, and I do wonder whether or not with this new expanded playoffs, that is certainly going to take a bite out of these bowl-eligible teams once we get to postseason play, Coach.
Well, it will, and there's nothing about college football that it is what it once was. Let's face it, the change has occurred. Some great, some in a lot of people's eyes, including mine, not so great. But we've got a lot of work left to do. I think the 2 words that people try to use in scheduling, they want it fair and they want it balanced. And those are 2 difficult things to do. But through analytics within our league, the variation of schedule is not more than 3 to 4%, meaning, okay, over a 10-year period, here's your opponents, and here's their record combined, and there's like a 48-point-something and a 52 variation, meaning within 4% of balance and fairness. And you can do it over a 10-year period, not 2 or 3 last years, you know.
Yeah.
And so you start there, and then things change. And I saw some of the people from the analytic company that has been hired that I've been really impressed with since I've been in this job, and I've had a lot of long conversations with them. And I saw them in Atlanta over the weekend at the championship game, and they feel really good. I mean, these are unbiased people, really smart people, and they feel really good with what has been able to occur in that. And it's going to be ever-changing. Who knows? 16 teams, maybe. I mean, who knows right now? I don't even try to speculate. I don't sit in on all those high-level meetings. But, you know, we just got to trust that a lot of people that know what they're doing are doing this as well as it can possibly be done.
Well, what was your impression of the Southeastern Conference Championship game?
Well, I was down on the field for a long time, and I'll tell you what it was. It was a physical football game. The line of scrimmage is where, in my opinion, Alabama won the game. You know, now there was no domination anywhere, but if you just look at what occurred, time to throw the ball and success running the football, it's been rare that Georgia, over this run they've had, has come out on the short end of that in any game. And I thought Alabama's offensive unit is one of the more improved units in the conference. It's easy to see, you know, Jalen Milroe and how hard he's worked. And I've told him that. I said, your start to finish has been impressive, but your job's not finished. I don't leave it with rat poison. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. They're not going to blame that on you anyway, right?
No. My job has always been to challenge players to be their best, and if you think you've done your best, there's more. And that's essentially what I tell them. And but I think Alabama's offensive front on both sides, on offense, is extremely improved from when I saw them early in the season. And then the defensive front, you know, it was really impressive coming up with the amount of pressure they put on the quarterback and, you know, getting to him. And then very obvious stopping the run was incredibly important in that game. But it was a true SEC match where you could hear it. When you can hear contact, you know, people don't understand the noise a line of scrimmage makes or not. That was the thing I did as a head coach. I would always, early in the game, first quarter, I looked at nothing but both lines of scrimmage. Looked at our offense and our defense up front to see what I thought strategy we might have to use to win a game, because those matchups are so critical.
They were indeed. I tell you that. And what a great environment, too. I happened to be in Atlanta as well over the weekend, Coach, and you could just feel that intensity. And it was brought up in the postgame. I believe Dennis Dodd asked both coaches in both press conferences whether or not we're going to feel that same energy with the expanded playoffs. And it's hard to not think that it might ding it a little bit, Coach.
Well, it's, you know, when you extend a season and you look at the National Football League, it's what I do for statistics, because that's so evenly paired, more so than people realize. There's not a lot of difference from the Super Bowl champion to maybe the last place team. It may look like it, you know, in record, but when you look at the National Football League, it's why you see some really good teams lose early. I think we're human.
Yeah.
And the longer we're having to do something, there's more opportunity for letdown. The difference, you know, in the National Football League 1 through game 12.
Yeah.
You lose, you're out, kind of mentality. And I hope we don't lose that at all. And I don't think we will. But I realize, and everybody needs to realize, that a critical injury, even if you win your first round, which would be, quote, the second round for the, quote, best teams.
Yeah.
But if you win your first game and you lose 2 of your best players, you may well struggle to be the champion. So it's an interesting dilemma. It will certainly be interesting. And one thing we do know, the viewership will be amazing.
Yeah.
You're right.
If Mike Norvell were to reach out to you, the Florida State head coach, after what happened to their team, what would be a piece of advice or two that you would offer up on how to handle that situation with your team, if it was your team, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, I know Mike well. Coached against him when he was at Arizona State as the offensive coordinator. We played him in the Sun Bowl. He's a good football coach. When he came in the ACC, he spent a lot of time talking with me. And there's nothing that you can say that will make the Florida State fans, players, or Mike feel okay about this. There's no way to justify what occurred. We all have our opinion, and I would never share that with him. But what is an absolute that I see coaches struggle with, I'm going to give you a Coach Bryant thing he did. And I always tried to do this as head coach. On Wednesday night, his thing was always have a plan for everything. And you write it down and you think in a calm manner, well, this is going to be basically what I'm going to say if we win. You don't want to win cost you a game the next week. This is what I'm going to say if we lose. And in his area, he would write down, this is what I'm going to say if we tie. But he also would talk about heartbreaker. That when you face a heartbreaker, we've seen those losses. I can remember one specifically that I didn't do a very good job. We played Arkansas when I was head coach at Ole Miss in 7 overtimes and lost to Matt Jones. That heartbreaker, you better think about. So going into that, and I don't know what he has said to his team prior, going into that Sunday, if you're on that bubble, you better already know and have a plan. And if you haven't, he's playing in a big bowl game against a national championship team until somebody else is crowned. Georgia's the national champion of college football, right? So,
well, that's right.
Turn your attention to focus on that. And that would have been what I would have done. Yes, what I would have done, I would have had that thought process, knowing that you're going to have a huge game, impact game on your program. And Mike, you're young. There is more to come. God bless you all. Part of that criteria was, for that committee to look at what's the team look like right now. The other part of it is strength of schedule, but you make sure they know they did their part.
That is a little bit of our conversation that we had with Coach David Cutcliffe, a special assistant to the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. If you want to listen to that full conversation, trust me, I know there's only a couple of minutes left, but it's well worth it. Head over to our website, 977ESPN.com. We are counting down to tip-off. It is our hometown broadcast featuring the Lady Raiders of Middle Tennessee State University and the Lady Vols from the University of Tennessee. Let's go ahead and take our one and only timeout, and we've got college basketball teed up for you for our hometown broadcast. And it is next, right here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.